The moment Ruto can withdraw security, for instance, or threaten to withdraw security from a chief justice, he wants to say that if you go against him, if you don't play by his dictates, he can expose you to danger, to harm, to death. Because any thug can now attack you for whatever reason, and you are, you are just left there to the vagaries of nature, as it were. And that is dangerous because we are all human beings. The Chief Justice is not a god or a goddess. And with that kind of threat, if she fears harm, it's conceivable that she could try to comply with the threats. And then that would undermine the rule of law. So let's start with your last point, the independence of the judiciary. You see, Kenya is supposed to be a democratic country governed by the rule of law. That's what we want. That's what we expect. That's what we aspire for. That's what many people assume Kenya is. Kenya has a constitution with a robust Bill of Rights. And Kenya has a constitution that carves out the role of the judiciary as the only independent arbiter of disputes, legal disputes. So whether it is legal disputes within government, between government departments, or between citizens and the government, that's the only arbiter. It is the place where everyone is supposed to go to plead or to present their grievances and present the evidence and let the judiciary, which is not affiliated to either side, listen to the case and decide the matters impartially. That, for a very long time, has not been happening in Kenya. So, from 1963, literally, to 2010, we did not have an independent judiciary. We had a judiciary that was whimsically appointed by the president in power, and that was first and foremost answerable only to the president. And whatever the president wanted, the judiciary did. Essentially, during that period of time, even though Kenya was supposed to, quote unquote, be democratic, the president was above the law. The president was unimpeachable. You could not challenge the president. That stopped, at least legally, under this constitutional framework. So under our constitution, the president is not above the law. The mere fact that charges, criminal and civil, cannot be brought against the president in his name does not confer on the president supremacy over the constitution. It simply means that for the term that is in power, he has some immunity. Immunity. It's not being above the law. Immunity is conferred for that period of time for specific things. But if, say, for example, Ruto was to shoot someone, there is no immunity against bringing charges against him. If Ruto were to commit crimes against humanity, which I believe he has, but we would need evidence to be able to confront him with that, he can be charged by the ICC. And warrants of arrest can be issued, just like they were issued the other day against Netanyahu, who is also the Prime Minister of Israel. So if this could be done against Netanyahu, who is Ruto? So he's not above the law. And of course, international law is part of our laws pursuant to this constitution. So that's number one. So the judiciary, if this were to happen, if charges were to be brought against Ruto for these crimes that for which he has no immunity, and for which, like international crimes, and for which he would have to be subjected to a judicial process, it's our judiciary first and foremost that would be able to preside over those proceedings. And if that were to happen, you want an independent judiciary, a judiciary which has administrative, has financial, and has practical independence from the executive to be able to preside over those kinds of proceedings, including proceedings against his appointees. Because the moment Ruto can withdraw security, for instance, or threaten to withdraw security from a chief justice, he wants to say that if you go against him, if you don't play by his dictates, he can expose you to danger, to harm, to death, because any thug can now attack you for whatever reason, and you are, you are just left there to the vagaries of nature, as it were. And that is dangerous because we are all human beings. The Chief Justice is not a god or a goddess. And with that kind of threat, if she fears harm, it's conceivable that she could try to comply with the threats. And then that would undermine the rule of law because the decisions that they make, the judiciary, including the Supreme Court, that she heads, will not dispense justice in accordance with the law, the constitution, and the evidence. So therefore, we would not have a rule of law regime in Kenya. We would have a capricious, whimsical dictates of a tyrant, which is what Ruto is. And so Kenya would no longer be a democratic state. So it goes to the very foundation of the kind of country that we thought we constructed or configured by proclaiming the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So Ruto has fundamentally attacked the foundation of our constitutional democracy, as it were. And this is a danger. It's an existential threat to our constitutional order. So that's my response to that question. So this cannot just be seen as a threat to the Chief Justice. It's not a threat to the Supreme Court. It's a threat to the constitutional order of the country, an existential threat.